All right, y'all. Welcome to PTC Cast episode 21. Today, we dive into goal setting, clarity within that goal setting, and landmarks within that goal setting. This is brought to you by ProgressThroughChange.com, where you can get your free 4 Easy Habits for Fat Loss guide. You can also get a free 3-day trial to the online exercise archive, which I would highly recommend. But check that out. I'm Alex Martin. This is Chris Saldana. Enjoy the episode. But no, man, do you have any sort of vision board, anything that you strive towards, like personally, like I know, what I want my family to look like and what I want my house and my life set up to, you know what I mean? Like things like that. Do you do any sort of like long-term goal setting, vision planning type thing?
So, I don't have anything visual except a document, like just a text document.
Your eulogy?
Eulogy, and I don't know if you saw it in the, the Hero on a Mission book, but I'm pretty sure that he talks about yearly or your 1 year, 5 year, and 10-year goal or vision, not goal. And yeah, so I have all of that written down, and again, it's not visual, but it kind of it pointed me in, like, I guess, the right direction. But this week I do want to rewrite those, because I feel like what happened was when I wrote it, even though it was only a couple months ago, I was being a lot less, I'm not going to say selfish, but it was not as much about me as now I want it to be. Before it was about my family, and I want everything to be oriented around my family, which is great. I still want to be really oriented around my family, but I also,
but it's your life, though.
Yeah, I don't want to put behind my ambitions, and I feel like right now I'm feeling a lot more ambitious than I was back then. And so this week when I'm watching your dogs, I actually want to do that and create a new 1, 5, and 10-year vision or goals.
Nice.
And then, just reverse engineer that to, what I can do now, which I already have, goals for, the short term. But
what are some of the 10 years that come to mind? Like things you want in your life to look like? Because when I was, for anyone that doesn't know, Chris got in contact with a guy named Donald Millard, who is an incredible, I will say, entrepreneur and self-development guy.
Yeah.
Does that sound like a fair way? Okay. And Chris got an early copy of his book, Hero on a Mission, and was kind enough to lend it to me. But part of some of the processes within that book are looking at your life and setting up your 1 year, 5 year, 10-year life plan.
Exactly.
Excuse me, not life plan, but how would you work your life plan?
I'd say all of it together is a life plan.
Okay, so what you want it to look like. And you'd also write your eulogy too, which was crazy powerful.
Yeah.
But, okay, so within that 10-year, what are some, like, because I put, like, some really, like, weird little things that I would really like to happen. But I would like to hear kind of how you structured yours and some things you put on there.
Okay, do you want me to bring it up or just go off the top of my head?
Just go off the top of your head.
So I know off the top of my head what I wanted to do, and this is probably going to change, is create a YouTube channel with my siblings called Adventure Time. Yeah, where literally all we do is just go on adventures and document those adventures. And at the 10-year mark, that would be their business at that mark. So, the 1 year, it would be building that channel. The 5 year, it would just be, building it to...
Maybe turning it into a business.
Yeah, exactly. And then in 10 years, the goal is for them to, be the owners of that channel, so that, boom, they have a job, and they don't have to, do a 9 to 5, be stuck in a corporate, whatever, right. And they're able to build this to, whatever they want it to be, become. And I actually put job positions for each one of them.
Oh, no kidding.
And then the next thing was I wanted Pick a Site, my business, to become almost like a predestined website builder for entrepreneurs, something that's very affordable and that actually works. And so 2 years ago when I started, messing with or I think it was a year ago when I started messing with web design, I created a website where you can, go in and customize and build your own site
Sure.
kind of. And
Yeah.
I would get that information and build it myself.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. So the goal is 10 years for that to be that, or pick a site to actually be that, but with lead generation also, so that business owners can actually create something, with their business, so they can create a life of their own. And then the third thing is I wanted to become like a big personal brand, something that inspires people to change. Like that's the overall meaning of life, I feel like, is just constant improvement and just change.
Yep.
So I wanted to almost
There
be
is
like
no static.
Yeah, exactly. I wanted to be a beacon for, people who have those same ideals or, want to do that in the future.
Yeah.
And then lastly, I really wanted to partner with you when it comes to something with fitness.
All right.
So that's actually a 5-year goal.
Okay.
But those are my goals. And yeah, like I break it down a little bit more, but I would have to read the document for that. But yeah, man.
That's awesome, dude. Yeah,
Yeah.
I like that. Well, I like that you covered a lot of different avenues. And, it's funny because you mentioned like each of them have a job description or a job. And it's like, that might seem like a tiny little detail, but I think it's those tiny little details that like
Make it seem more real.
it meant enough to you to write it down.
It did.
You know what I'm saying? Like that specific thing. And like that just makes it a little bit more tangible, a little bit more real. I know like in my 10-year, one thing that I wrote down was like, I wanted to take my kids to school in the morning.
Oh, that's so
Like,
beautiful.
which sounds like such like a stupid little thing, but like, I feel like it's something that I wrote down because it's something that I'm going to look forward to because I'm a morning person and I want to be able to, send them to school with a positive impact and having a great start to their day. But it also like, it makes me want to work a little harder because it's like, all right, well, I got to set up my days so that, I don't have essentially anything going on till at least 9 a.m. or whenever you drop a kid off at school. I don't know. But so that was like one of the little things on there for me. Another one for me is whenever Brianna and I move into either our next home or, maybe it's the one after, I don't know. But we know we definitely want to have some land, and I would like to build a barn dominium or something like that to have a gym for PTC, and then above have an office space and an actual podcast space for us as well.
Yeah. Man.
So like there's a lot of, I really think it's like within the details that you put the stuff that gets you excited, like you had said, them having their own individual job or like how you want people to feel about your personal brand. Like I feel like those intricate details are the way that you make your plans or your visions or things like that like a little bit more tangible and real. Because if I were to just sit here and say like in 10 years I want PTC to make a lot of money, like what does that mean? What does that do?
Anything.
Yeah, or I want PTC to change a lot of people's lives, and like that's awesome. That's a righteous one right there. But like, what does that mean? How do I get there? Or how does that feel? Yeah, you're exactly right. So I think it's those intricate details that you get a lot out of. And
I was listening to Darren Hardy's Compound Effect on the way here, and he was talking about this exact thing, actually, creating goals and just making them more clear. And
so you can see them.
Yeah, and one of the things that, just amazes me about, when he was talking about him setting his goals, one of them was to, meet his dream woman. And so, do you know what he did? No. He grabbed a journal and he wrote down 40 pages worth of just description.
I'm not sure that person exists, man.
Well, yeah, like just like he even says like down to the texture of her hair.
Whoa,
like her her
man,
values, beliefs, like all of these things, and then he goes on to say, well, how do I need to, or what do I need to do to attract someone of this stature?
How do I become a person that attracts? Okay,
exactly. And he's like, okay, so what he does is write 40 more pages of the values and beliefs
to be.
Yeah, exactly. And then he goes on to say, like in eerie detail, it's almost like she was ripped off of the pages from my journal and presented in front of me, and that's his wife right now. Whoa. So I don't know, if someone. And he says that, he uses that in, all parts of his life. But not only that, Donald Miller, successful, business owner, writer, inspirational speaker, all of that. What does he do? This exact same thing that we're talking about. And it's all about creating clarity. You know, apparently it seems like clarity is the key to a lot of things, like clarity in your habits, clarity in, you know, your future, clarity in, you know, what do you want, and all of that. Like, maybe there's probably something to that, you know?
Yeah, well, I also think sometimes people pass on the small details or half-ass it because they don't know. And not only do they not know, but they don't, I don't want to say they don't want to pick the wrong thing, but they're afraid to say what they want in case they don't get it, or they're afraid to give something else up for that thing. Does that make sense?
It does, yeah.
So it's like if I sit here and tell you, well, I want to take my 2 kids to school in the mornings, well, what if I have 3 kids and I'm training at 5, 6, and 7 a.m.? You know what I mean? So it's
Conflict.
just, you're exactly right. But it's like, no, if I'm able to dial that in a little bit more, I can be a little bit more specific, and I can see that. But I think people try to cop out on the details because, number one, if it's general, they feel like they're more likely to get there. But number 2, it's less accountability.
So much less accountability.
Which it's funny that I said the 2 kids thing because it's not like you're bad if you have 3 kids. But like, point being, you know, when you write down the specifics and you just get a little bit more into those details, man, it becomes so much more tangible. So much more tangible. You can actually see it. You know?
Yeah, and I know, like,
God, but this dude did 40 pages twice.
40, yeah. And imagine that's just for, I mean, I'm not going to say just like that's his lifelong wife. Yeah. But, yeah, man. I mean, I don't know. Like, whenever I'm creating clarity for my goals and stuff, I'm not gonna lie. Sometimes it's hard for me to initiate that like thought process. Yeah. Just because it could be a rabbit hole, man. Yeah. And it could take, like, you know, a long time, and that's why I guess I'm waiting, you know, to watch your dogs to create this, because I know that it's gonna be, you know, it's going to take a lot of time and a lot of energy. You have to actually dedicate some time to it. It's not just like a quick 10-minute practice. It's like you have to sit there and think, man, like, what if? What do I want? And what's cool about that is it's like as soon as you figure that out, you start deconstructing and working backwards into your checkpoints. It's like, all right, man, well, if I want to set myself up to have, again, let's say the 2 kids and taking them to school every morning, right? It's like, okay, well, number 1, I have to be financially stable enough to have 2 children and to be able to not train from the hours of whatever, 5 a.m. to 9 a.m. so that I can do that. You know, so it's like, how do I work hard enough and then set up my training schedule, and then, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's, you learn to build it. You're able to deconstruct it and work it backwards so that you can start building towards it, if that makes sense. It does. At least that's how I approach it. Yeah, it doesn't. So in the book Atomic Habits, James Clear, like, talks about processes, and you're name dropping with the book. I know, right? Man, that's impressive. I'm not good with authors. And he talks about that processes are more important than goals. And then Darren Hardy, you know, he talks about goals are extremely important, but you know, if you bring them together, and well, I guess if you kind of go, you know, the Darren Hardy way, it's not only about the goals; it's about deconstructing those goals and you know, creating a plan. Because if you have, you know, if you have a goal to do A, B, and C, but your plan consists of just, you know, getting to A, well, guess what? You're not going to accomplish that goal. Yeah. And yeah, like, goals are big, and they're kind of a headache to me. Yeah. But I know that whenever I do create them, it's always been worth it. Yeah. And with the processes. Yeah. And, you know, something that I think is interesting about goal setting is, well, let me say this. There's been a lot of times in my life where I haven't necessarily goal set, but I've stuck to processes that I know fulfill me and are positive processes, and they've gotten me a significant distance. Yeah. So all that saying, like, I think it's okay to bury your head and work, but you have to know it's in the right direction and it's for the right thing. Exactly. If that makes sense. So it can definitely help you to have that total clarity, but I've definitely had times in my life where it's like, no, I'm just going to bury my head and work and things will work out. And I think that's a little, riskier. I think that's not as structured, but I definitely think that taking the time to goal set is worth it. Yeah. And if like you just said, if you are just doing the processes, well, you know, at least you're doing the processes, the routines, like those will carry you, you know, quite a way. But I guess, you know, like you said, if, you know, your goal is to go north and your processes are taking you south, then hey, are those processes really helping?
Yeah.
So
Doesn't matter how fast you run in the wrong direction.
yeah, exactly. And I guess that goes back to the last episode also, like about the small changes. Even if you're making, very small build-ups, but it is pointed toward north,
You're oriented the
your
right way.
goal, then yeah, eventually or always you're going to be working toward where you want to go.
Yeah.
And if you're creating those, 1, 5, 10-year things, then, you have clarity in, where you want to go,
Yeah.
1, 5. Because I know before I created those, I had no idea what I wanted to do, a year from then.
When you set the goal to be the strongest teen in the world, how old were you? How long did it take you? And how exactly would you consider that to be something that was just process oriented, or did you actually say like, no, by this time I got to deadlift this much, by this time I got to bench this much? How did you break that down? How did you work that? Because I would consider that to be a pretty lofty one.
Okay, so I know I said that goals and processes are great together, but
You had none.
I actually just thought about this yesterday. Actually,
Okay.
This is so weird. We're talking about the things that I've been thinking about. When it came to become the strongest teen that ever lived, I didn't have any processes set in stone. Like I never even thought about it for those 2 years, maybe like subconsciously, but I had a very, very clear goal and, miniature goals or smaller goals for that big goal.
Yeah.
So I was always aligned to become the strongest teen that ever lived. Like from the point of me waking up to the point of me going to bed, it was
Everything
all
was in
driven
that
toward
direction.
that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like I was literally obsessed with that. And it took me 2 years. It was horrible. It was great. But yeah, somehow I did it.
Yeah.
And it's weird. I was 18 years old, or like 17 and a half when I decided to, no, I was 18 when I decided to become the strongest teen that ever lived. And I was like 17 and a half when I, got depressed and, wanted to, and I got into heavy lifting. But I don't remember where I was going with that.
We were talking about having set that goal and if you were process oriented or if you just, you had mentioned how oriented you were in that same direction, but you didn't really have any process. So were you just kind of going in the gym, pounding your head against the wall, training as hard as you could, and then eating everything and trying to sleep?
Well, I guess I knew the goal, which was become the strongest teen, and then I had to, my mind was just figuring out how to get to that goal.
Yeah.
And so the desire to get to that goal was creating the processes on their own. And because I wanted to achieve that goal, I never questioned the processes. If something was going to lead me closer to that goal, then I wouldn't question if I should do it or not. No, it was like, okay, that's what I need to do.
Yeah,
I'm
that's
doing
what
it.
we're doing.
Yeah, exactly. Whether it's taking a gram of caffeine before a workout, it's stupid crap, or eating a 4,500 calorie shake at night every night, or my 4 pounds of pasta every day.
Yeah.
Whatever it took. And maybe if your goal is clear enough, then the processes don't really matter because they'll somehow just you'll find a way.
When I prepped for my first show, I was 200 pounds and I thought I had way more muscle than I did. But so I started dieting and I was like, all right, I just got to get to 190. And I got to 190. Then I was like, all right, I just got to get to 180. And I got to 180, 170, 160, 150. And so,
Wow.
Once I made it to 150, looking back now, I definitely could have gotten leaner, but I was never really concerned with the number of 150. It was just, I knew I needed to get leaner. So I stuck with the processes, and then I was just looking at landmarks, if that makes sense.
It does, yeah.
So it was not like, I didn't maybe necessarily have that specific goal in mind of 150, but I was like, well, I knew I needed to be leaner. So my goal was to get to the next landmark, if that made sense.
Yeah, and your brain figured out what that landmark was, and it just latched onto those weights.
Yeah, so maybe that was some form of goal setting and being a little bit more process-oriented. But now it's a lot more enjoyable for me as far as goal setting and deconstructing goes, because those landmarks are those micro victories that keep you not only motivated and invested, but knowing that you're working in the right direction.
Yeah.
Because if you're not hitting those landmarks, well, you're not getting any closer to that goal. And if you're not getting any closer to that goal, you got to take a look at your processes.
Yeah, and the cool thing about, creating clear goals is what those landmarks are. So you get that, excitement whenever you do hit those landmarks. But, if you do just have a goal and, you're hitting those landmarks, but you don't really know it, then, you could get discouraged and be like, well, I'm not closer to, my goal. So fuck this.
Yeah.
When in reality, you are on the right path and you're doing amazing.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, my online clients, we take weigh-in averages every week. So we weigh in 7 days, and then we'll take the average of the week, and that's kind of the number we play by. And so we play by that average because your weigh-ins fluctuate all over the place.
Yes.
So those landmarks of the averages, I think, are huge, because otherwise you're sitting there looking at, your weight trend, and it's just like bouncing all over the place, right? But if you were to plot the averages, you're trending downwards, right? Or trending in what your right direction is. So I think we can get a little lost in the processes sometimes if we're not looking at our landmarks. If we're not breaking down the step-by-step thing to get there. It's like, let's say we're 200 pounds and then we get down to, our weigh-in averages. Let's say our weigh-in average is 200 pounds, but then, next week we're 201, 202, 203, but then, somehow we dial it in, we lose a lot of water, we keep the carbs in check, something weird like that, and then suddenly we're 198, 197, 196. We take those averages. If your average is 199, we're cruising, man. We're moving in the right direction.
Yeah.
Maybe we could dial it in a little bit, do it a little quicker, whatever. That's something different. But, you could sit there and just question and be confused if you're bouncing all over the place. You have to have some sort of clarity within not only the goal itself, but those landmarks and how you're getting there.
I really like that idea because, as you know, I started tracking my weights and my calories. And that's exactly what I've been seeing. Like, there's some days where I'll be coasting, maintaining, because that's my goal, maybe to gain a little bit.
Yeah.
And what'll happen is, some days usually I know exactly what causes it, but, I'll wake up 6 pounds heavier than I should have woken up. But then I'll remind myself, hey, remember what Alex said. Just trust the process, stay consistent, and everything will be okay. So, I didn't lower my calories that day. I just stayed, did what I needed to do. Yeah. And within like 4 days, boom, it'll just go right back to normal. And, I took that average and, maybe I would gain like 1 pound that week, which is perfect. Yeah. Like, that's exactly what I want. So, yeah, if you're getting like stuck in analyzing, the ups and downs, the constant ups and downs, like that would drive me crazy. And, if I didn't have you to tell me, hey, like, this is how, like, that's just how it is. Yeah. Well, maybe when I saw that I gained 6 pounds that day, maybe I would have been like, fuck this. Like, this is stupid. I'm going to stop tracking. I'm going to go eat a cheesecake today because, like, seriously. Why? Yeah. Why? Like, and there's no point in this.
And you're going to recalibrate every time you're like, oh, well, crap. I'm 201 today and I was 200 yesterday. Well, I must have ate a bad food yesterday. Or my calories must be wrong, or my macros must be off. And it's like, no, man, you forgot that literally the position of the moon or the time of the month or what time you ate or how much salt you had or how much water you had or whether you trained or not can affect your weigh-ins, man. Like, there's so many variables around these things. So unless we can have a good way to quantify landmarks, we're going to be all over the place. We're going to be confused. We're going to be constantly questioning. But that's why we got to be process-oriented, man.
Yeah, it'll keep you sane.
Yeah, it'll keep you sane. Otherwise, you'll question everything under the sun.
Yeah, and I know, like, if maybe if, you are doing those things and maybe you get a little bit out of whack or something and you are working towards something important, like for me, it's a powerlifting meet and I'm competing in the 242s. So I have to stay at a certain weight so that when I do a water cut, it's not going to be, insane. Like, I don't want a water cut any more than, like 8 pounds, 10 pounds max. And if, that day I didn't know, how the body worked, and I did give in, and let's say I did put on an extra 2 pounds, well, imagine having to cut an extra 2 pounds of water weight for my powerlifting meet, and then the effect of the performance that would have. Like, even though you are making, or you can make, a shitty choice today, like, what happens when those stack up, 2 months from now, in my case, to a powerlifting meet? And if I would have just managed those things and just stayed consistent, I would have been fine. But because I chose to, give up that one day because
Right.
of that one inconsistency. Like, come on, just stay consistent, trust the process. That's what I'm learning.
Yeah. A lot of us, I think, get stuck in our own head, or like, you know, I'll have people typically, I shouldn't say typically, but I've had, you know, in the past before, someone will have, you know, maybe their first or second week of online coaching, and they've been crazy consistent, and they, you know, they got that good initial weight jump down. And, you know, let's say they lose, you know, 5 pounds in their first week, which is a great week.
Yeah.
But then that next week rolls around and they lost 3.5. And then they're like, well, why didn't I lose 5? And the thing is, man, is it's like, well, number one, it gets harder. Number two, you probably lost some water weight and some other stuff. And, you know, we didn't have to do much to dial you in there. But we're looking at the trend, man. We're not trying to like make these crazy leaps or bounds or overshoot ourselves, man.
Yeah.
We're just trying to be as consistent as we can in the right direction. So people are like, you know, what can we do to speed up the process? And there's nothing wrong with wanting to dive in a little harder, but it's like, man, it's week 2. We still got the training wheels on, bro. Like, you're doing great. Let's take the victory as it is. Let's trust the process and keep rolling with it, man.
Yeah, that's 8 pounds in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
What happens if you lose another 5 pounds? That's 13 pounds in a month.
It adds
you
up
do
quick.
that next month, 26. Like, that's amazing.
Yeah. But it's like, so both flip sides of the coin there. Like, you can question the process because it's not going well enough for you, or you can question how to increase the process when it's going perfectly for you. And it's like, why are you trying to overcomplicate this? Why are you trying to make this harder than it needs to be? You know, if we know what we're doing is working, let's hold tight on it, man.
Exactly.
Let's be consistent with it and let that time compound. That's what I have to tell people a lot too, man, is it's like, particularly my clients who have been getting after it for, you know, whatever. Maybe it takes the average person to get a good walking habit in and a good food journaling habit in a month to really get under their belt. Let's say that. So let's say they're a month in. Well, at that point, man, it's like, let's just let time compound and see what happens.
Yeah.
You know, before we really get crazy overcomplicating things.
Yeah,
So,
there's no point in overcomplicating at that moment.
Yeah.
You know, like we talked about in the last episode, just slowly raise that baseline so you're always progressing. You're never like overstressing. And, you know, it always stays like maybe not easy, but pretty easy.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Because that's how you're going to build, you know, these things for life.
Yeah.
And
so
that's the goal, right?
Yeah, man. So you set that goal, you create the clarity within it, and then you follow your landmarks.
Yep.
Step by step.
Step by
Don't
step.
overcomplicate. Don't question. I mean, well, question if it's not working. But
Yeah.
if it's working, trust the process, man.
Trust the process, man.
Yeah, 100%. Thank you all for listening. This has been PTC Cast episode 21.